News anchor RBT back again today because EA Sports dropped what I think is their last bit of Madden 22 franchise news, as we have some questions answered, but we also have questions that we have not got the answer to yet. I am a little disappointed in some of the stuff that they didn't talk about today, but you never know. We have the entire summer for more news to come out. It's just a little disappointing because this is the last scheduled news they have for franchise mode specifically for the rest of the summer before release, but you never know. I guess expect the worst in the case of EA Sports. But really quick today, just wanted to go through the Madden 22 franchise notes that were released. You guys might learn something today, a little bit new about Madden 22 franchise. Like, literally, this is completely as in-depth as it gets for Madden 22 franchise mode, so hope you guys do enjoy. And if you do, make sure to smash a huge thumbs up. They just released Superstar KO in the yard in the beta for Madden 22, which I'm still playing. So if you guys want to see me make a video on those two game modes and like what I've experienced from Madden 22 the yard and Madden 22 Superstar KO, if we get 10,000 likes, I'll drop that early next week. I'm gonna play a little bit more this weekend to get a full-on better grasp of the two game modes so I can make a better video. But if we get 10,000 likes on today's video, we'll make those two videos happen early next week. Also, guys, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't. We're trying to hit 1 million subscribers by the end of the year. Guys, also make sure to follow both my Twitter and Instagram accounts. As soon as we do hit 50k followers on each individual platform, I'll be giving away a next-gen console to one of you guys. Literally, just go follow my Instagram, follow my Twitter. As soon as they hit 50k followers, we're giving away a next-gen console to one of you guys. So that's 2 next-gen consoles up for grabs as soon as the Twitter and Instagram pages hit 50k. So make sure to go follow me if you haven't. Link in the description box below. Enough freaking waffling, man. Let's get into Madden 22. So I did already skim over this a little bit, and I'm kind of disappointed. A lot of it is stuff we've already had released to us and we've seen in the beta and stuff they've already come out with in the trailer, but still some bits and bombs in here and some new stuff later on in the article. But obviously the overview of stuff that they have added, franchise staff, you have the staff points, talent trees, the types of different talents, the staff movements, the new scouting that's coming in September, not at launch, but in September, the new weekly strategy stuff, the scenario engine, the season engine, the new dynamics, the new cinematics, the press conferences, the player interviews, the GM meetings, stuff like that, the actual cinematic stuff, the franchise hub's completely different, and a lot of other stuff that they did update that they get more in depth later on in the article, like the franchise tuning and the quality of life improvements, such as draft class generators, the progression and regression. All this stuff has gotten improvements, the trade logic and value, and the authenticity of franchise mode in its own. Now, you guys have already seen, I'm gonna like briefly go over this stuff that you guys have already seen in the trailer and stuff I've already talked about on the channel. But obviously now we have the brand new franchise staff, as you have your head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and you have a position for player personnel. Each one has a talent tree that improves things throughout your team or improves your opportunity to trade for players or sign for specific players. You might get a plus to a rating from your offensive coordinators being boosted on their skill tree. You might be helped in trade negotiations. So I think this is a massive dub. Some more in-depth stuff could definitely go down. Like, it's a very boring process in terms of like firing and hiring coordinators. That could definitely be improved, but at least we have like staff management now. And also they have said they're going to be updating all the talents you can get and everything you can lock on the skill tree throughout the season. So that's going to be awesome. So we're going to have new stuff throughout the year, so it just doesn't get boring, so it's not the same old, same old. The staff points, a lot of people, and it's even states in this article, furthermore, staff points are not purchasable with real-life currency. Staff points can only be earned through playing games, meeting selectable game day goals, and completing scenarios. No, you do not purchase franchise staff points in Madden 22 franchise mode. You can't buy it with real money. You just unlock it throughout the game mode. Everybody thought, because depending on what version of the game you pre-order, you get a certain amount of franchise staff points, so that made everybody think it was monetizable. No, it's just kind of how you start the game with a certain amount of franchise staff points, and so it's not like unfair for people in like maybe an online franchise. Some of the users got 100 staff points for getting the deluxe edition or the legend edition of the game. You can actually have the ability to turn that off too. So I don't think it's really anything too terrible that they're giving, me and you and everybody that plays franchise mode a couple extra points to start off your franchises, especially with the ability for somebody to turn it off for an online franchise. Obviously, the staff points, what you use in your skill tree to unlock different talents throughout your offensive, defensive coordinators, your player personnel skill tree, and your head coach skill tree. For example, like right here under the talent tree for your head coach, first one for 10 franchise points. If you want to use those staff points here, you can decrease multi-week injury recovery time, which is obviously huge because you want your players on the field, and if they get hurt, back as soon as possible. Another one on your defensive coordinator increases the injury rating for all defenders. Moving on to the offensive coordinator, you have the same thing. I realize all the offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators all have the same kind of pliability talent tree. Moving on to the fourth one, obviously I talked about the player personnel. It's going to help you throughout the talent tree. The more stuff you unlock, help you in trades, signing players. This helps you get a trade discount on older players. So once again, the talent tree, one of the coolest things that's been added to Madden franchise mode in probably the last 10 years. It has really given me the NCAA 14 vibes. And we already mentioned there's so many different types of talents you can get in franchise mode. There's going to be 60 different ones at launch, but there will be over 95 throughout the year. And they're going to add more throughout the year, which is obviously super sick. It's going to keep things new. And once again, here's just some more as it shows you confirming one of the talents on the skill tree. Like the vocabulary of franchise mode is going to have to take some getting used to, but we'll get there. Like I was saying, in terms of the staff, it is really boring if you fire a coach. It's like not too much to it, not too much depth in the firing and hiring process. It says, however, if you're unhappy with your coordinators or your head coach as an owner, you can fire them and hire someone else from the candidate pool during the season. Generated coaches will populate out through each year of your franchise, and some may be better than others. If you get lucky, when you hire a coach, you will earn a staff points bonus. And it's just really boring. You literally click fire, you then look at the available coaches, and you just click hire. That's all there really is to it. There's no competition from some teams trying to hire a coach from another team. I just wish there's a little more in depth, but a decent start. And also the scouting, you guys know it's completely overhauled right now. And at the launch of Madden 22, it's going to be exactly as it was at the end of Madden 21. Everything about it's exactly the same, just updated rosters and updated franchise mode hub. But with the first target update in September, the scouting is going to be completely overhauled in Madden 22 franchise mode. You'll be able to assign scouts to different regions, scout regions for different players. It's going to be super sick and way more in depth. The weekly strategy stuff is sick as well. You know, being able to strategize for each opponent week to week like NFL teams do in real life. First time you really been able to strategize, you know, specifically depending on who the opposing team has. So I think the weekly strategy screen is sick. Needs some tuning, especially with the practice modes and the player fatigue and the injuries. But I think it's a great concept. And this too, this needs to be tweaked a little bit because players just getting injured way too often. They're getting way too fatigued way too easily. Like right now, you can turn off the progressional fatigue, but if you keep it on, it's really unplayable. So like hopefully they can fix that because obviously it's a realistic aspect you want added to the game, but it's got to be tuned to where the game's not unplayable, you know? You got to have some fun to it. Next we have the new scenarios. Super sick. I mean, like a lot of the decisions you make do affect your players, their upgrades. Maybe they're going to start regression faster. You might unlock some franchise stat points depending on like what you choose in your answers. It just gives me a little bit too much of the face of the franchise vibes. Like it's literally the same exact software. So it looks exactly the same as your cutscenes did in Face of the Franchise, but hopefully in franchise mode itself, the decisions mean more than what they do in actual Face of the Franchise, because it's like those answers you choose are always so worthless, like they never really even mean anything. So like I said, you may have conversations with your GM about a prospect or player you want to sign throughout the season. You meet with players in the locker room. Maybe it could help some player morale. Maybe help get like a temporary boost to your overall. You see Pete Carroll right here meeting with Russell Wilson. Next, we have the dynamic actor goals, which can directly assign goals to players involved in our stories. So it's kind of like goals your players unlock throughout the season. And like, for example, interaction with your starting running back would likely lead to a goal for your team to achieve 100 rushing yards. This year, that goal will be directly tied to that player involved in the story, which will help tie together the narrative stories we're telling through scenarios and players that are involved in them. And maybe help, you know, boost your overall, boost your morale, certain attributes. I think that's a dub. Like I was talking about, the temporary boost to your overalls or maybe temporary nerf to your overalls depending on maybe you failed a scenario or you completed your objective from a scenario or completed a goal or failed a goal. There's always going to be temporary like boost and nerfs depending on your team's morale because of those either failed or met targets. I feel like I'm speaking so clearly in this video, bro. I feel like a scientist. I feel like a freaking professor at Harvard. And obviously from these same exact scenarios, you can get permanent attribute boost as well. And superstar activation is cool because I was playing in the beta and I got confused because none of my players had X factors or registering, but you have to unlock something in your skill tree, which is cool, before you can actually use your X factor players. Obviously from the scenarios, you have chances to upgrade your development traits that happened a lot last year to Madden 21 franchise. Same thing with the XP morale. Franchise hub is completely different. No more coach in the background. It's a real 2D look, but it's just so much easier to navigate. It's going to take a lot of getting used to, but it makes it a lot easier to navigate. And obviously, everything's just right there. You can pretty much control your entire team from one screen. But it's just weird. It's going to take a lot of getting used to. And also, we have the new league tab with everything that happened in your franchise that season that you can look through. And this is a big dub in my eyes as well. The member screen is so much clearer now. What user is the owner of what team? You're able to put people on autopilot now. It's just so much cleaner. It is going to be so much easier to manage your online franchises in Madden 22. Now, this is where like things get really new, and everything we've gone over so far is really stuff we've already seen throughout the trailer, and then other things that EA have released up to this point for franchise mode. This stuff is pretty much brand new. So franchise tuning and quality of life improvement. So for draft logic, after expanding on Madden 22's QB draft rules post-launch, Madden 22 has enhanced the logic teams use in the first round across all player positions to improve decision making when on the clock. Teams will now consider what pick they have in the first round when determining what player positions they would consider at the pick to create positional value and tendencies that mimic the NFL's draft trends in real life. Team will use the awareness of where they are in the draft order along with other factors like their depth at the position, the players available at the time of the pick, and the team's current needs relative to the available players on the board. I got through that without stuttering once, but obviously draft logic needed to be improved. They improved it at the end of last year, but it still needs to be improved more. And obviously they say they've done that. Well, I guess that's kind of a wait and see kind of game. Same thing with the draft class generator. New types of players have been added to the rookie draft class generators to add even more variety to create memorable prospects to get excited about drafting, especially inside the top 10. And basically what this is saying is that they fixed the problem last year where every draft class was the same. There was no good offensive linemen. There was very few players that were high overall and very few players that had anything other than the normal development trait. So they fixed that. Players that have higher development traits now as rookies. So this had to be done. I'm glad they did it. Hopefully it actually works and is actually effective and it actually is good. Also, progression and regression has completely changed. It's random now. There's no longer predetermined overall nerfs and boosts to your overall depending on your age. So for example, just because Cam Newton is 34 years old, he's not every year the first time going to regress 4 overall. Sometimes he might regress 1 overall. The next franchise, once he turns 35, might regress 3 overall. The next one might regress 5. It's always going to be different. So you're not going to have the same lifespan of your players in each and every franchise. So I think that's cool. I still hate the fact that it's still set that players are going to regress once they do hit a certain age, but at least it's not the same every single time. But I still hate it that you can expect just because the players hit 32 or 33, depending on what position they are. It's always different ages that they start regressing at for each specific position. Obviously quarterbacks are going to start regress a lot later in their career in terms of their age than running backs. But I don't like that. I feel like it should be there's sometimes players who aren't good to the 31. So they should be able to, at that point, get their overall to gain, not just regress just because they're old, So I don't like that, but at least it's getting a little bit better and it's not the same every single time. Now this is where things start to really make me sad. The trade logic and value, really all they're talking about is that the quarterbacks are extremely valuable now. They're obviously they should be, but some cases may not be possible to agree to terms at all. I don't like that at all. Even the elite non-quarterbacks have received a value increase to address feedback and community response to some players being too easy to acquire. Remember though, overall is only part of the story for a player's value, which should be the case. Age, position, how good the team is, how the positional depth is for that team. A lot of different things go into a player's value for a trade. But then age is still a factor, so you're still going to be able to get old players. The thing that I'm really sad about is the fact that they did not add an extra 1 or 2 trade blocks to the trade screen. You can still only trade 3 assets at a time, and I feel like adding 2 more, and apparently they have that in NHL franchise for the EA NHL game. They have in franchise mode 5 trade blocks to use for each and every trade. I don't know why it's only 3. It's been like that for the past 5 years, even though we've all said we want at least 1 or 2 more. Because there's like so many times you're trying to get a really good player, and all you need to trade is like 1 more like 4th round draft pick, but you can't do it because there's only 3 trade blocks. So that's really unfortunate. And the other thing that sucks is the fact that there's no crossplay. This is talking about, obviously, there's this new 17-game season in the NFL, has been reflected in franchise mode. I'm assuming this is talking about like players changing their numbers. It says we've added the new 2021 NFL jersey rules and assignment logic to AI and user teams and franchise. So as more players change their jersey numbers in real life, players will continue to adopt the expanded range you can play throughout your league. So I guess you'll see different numbers from different players because that's now different in real life. So you see that reflected in franchise mode. It says, franchise, the NFL has never looked like this. I mean, obviously, we're glad about everything they've added into the game, but there's just so much still, bro, that, like, I'm just kind of sad about. Like, especially crossplay, the fact that you can't have custom schedules in franchise mode. Like, I want to be able to customize my schedule so I can play all my buddies that's in my online franchise each season. Like, I should have the ability to do that. They still haven't touched that. Trade logic still kind of sucks with the only freaking 3 blocks you can use in a trade. Like I said, not having crossplay this year is a massive L, bro. Like EA shouldn't be behind the game, bro. They're like one of the most successful video game companies out there, and they're one of the last to implement freaking crossplay. And also, it's not like the fact that you can only trade and use draft picks only 2 years in advance. I mean, you see teams trade players away or draft picks away for a draft pick from like the 2024 draft, like right now, you know? I think it should be expanded like 1 more year or so, but like especially there being no custom schedules, not adding trade blocks, no cross play, no custom schedules, that's kind of an L. But I mean, I think everything they've added this year in comparison to last year kind of outweighs the L to make it a W. But still, man, like at the bare minimum, bro, like give us custom schedules.